A very good day to you all. I am Ella, welcoming you all on behalf of Solar Quarter and the First View Group to the Energy Storage Solutions in Harsh Grid Environments webinar. Before we proceed further, I would like to thank our panel members for their immense support in organizing this event and extend my heartfelt gratitude to our sponsor, ATESF, for being a crusader and making this event possible. Their commitment to promote sustainable energy solutions is truly commendable. May I now invite Mr. Justin Zhang, Senior Product Manager, ATESS, to give the presentation for his company. Just before that, I would like to play the commercial video for ATESS.
Power revives civilization, advances technology, and improves life. However, the power within our easy reach is still unattainable for some people today. Bringing clean power to the world is what ATES has been pursuing. By harnessing every beam of light, ATES unlocks the potential of the energy revolution. Bearing the carbon neutrality mission, ATES overcomes every obstacle on the path forward. Tackling today's challenges with innovative power, ATES expands the boundaries with its unparalleled expertise in the energy sector. Through conscientious analysis and sophisticated experimentation, ATES designs products with the highest standards. With exploratory and persistent power, ATES keeps maximizing the efficiency of power applications and optimizing energy distribution. The endless energy is thus recycled, delivered to all corners of the land, and extended to the vast world beyond. Stars shine through the night, just as energy expels darkness and illuminates the universe. This is just what we do. The ATES innovation, deeply integrated solar, energy storage, and EV charging technologies is aimed to provide users smart, systematic, and comprehensive systems with superior quality guaranteed by ingenuity and intelligent manufacturing. To both partners and end users, a brand new user experience is unfolding. The clean energy flowing day and night converts the impossible into a daily routine. To picture a sustainable future, what can we do at the moment? Leading technological innovation. With every bit of our power, transforming traditional energy towards sustainability and revolutionizing the electric era. This is what we do, ushering in a cleaner, greener lifestyle. Innovative power, exploratory power, persistent power. This is the ATES power.
Over to you, Mr. Zhang.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be the speaker of today's webinar. And my name is Justin, and I'm the product manager of ATES, the professional energy storage provider. Okay, and let me share my screen first. Okay, so today our topic will be like the energy storage solutions in harsh grid environmentals. So when we talk about the harsh grid, it will affect our life a lot. Okay, normally we talking about is the commercial and industry or the utility part. That's our application scenarios, two different scenarios. Okay, for the commercial and industry part, so a very bad grid normally is unstable voltage will damage our product, and all the problems, overload, grid problems will will give us a really bad blackout. So about our factory, about our business building, we are afraid of blackout. Okay, we need the power all the time. So that's the big problem. The harsh grid will infect our life. And for the utility side, also the harsh grid will infect the power generation. Normally, now it's still like more than 60% of the power generation is the thermal. So the thermal power generation will give us a really bad problem is uncertainty power generation. Okay, there are a lot of the energy we can't use it. It's waste. Okay, and also the unstable voltage, unstable current, unstable frequency will give us a really bad grid inrush. So all of those problems we need to figure out. Okay, for utility side, it's normally is the government job to do it, but for the commercial industry, it's really our job to do it for our customer. Okay, give our end users a very stable and clean energy to use. Okay, any blackout, we will figure out it. So when we talk about a lot of the harsh grid problems, how can we solve it? What's the solutions? That's the major the major topic. Okay, the major thing I need to share. I want to share to everyone today. So firstly, let's have a look of what kind of product we need to use for this solar energy storage solution. Number one is the PCS, the power conversion system, bidirectional battery inverter. That is the major product we need to use for the whole energy storage solution. We normally call it PCS, and what can we do with the PCS? The PCS will converting the AC power to DC power, also the DC to AC power, because it's the bidirectional. So that means we can use the solar power to supply our load, or we can use the battery power to supply our load too. Okay, our R-type PCS we can do seamless on and off grid transfer. That means any blackout from our grid side, you don't need to worry about that anymore. Okay, because we have the battery, so we can do the same light transfer from on grid to off grid. Then you can have our battery power to supply your load simultaneously. Okay, constantly reliable. And when we choose our PCS, the first thing we need to know the power number is 4 units if we don't have grid. Then we need to use our PCS. The rated power is fully covered over peak load on site. And the most important things for our R-type PCS, we have insulation transformer built inside. That means for really bad, the large projects, the large site, you don't need to worry about that because insulation transformer will protect and improve our grid, our powers, our site. We can stop any bad power from our grid to infect our load. The next one, let me introduce our solar charge controller. Because we have solar panels, we need to use our solar power. So we need this solar charge controller to connect our solar, to receive our solar power to charge our battery or to supply our load. Okay, our PPD 250 is 1000 voltage DC to DC converter. To converting the unstable DC power to stable DC power, then we can use our stable DC power to charge our battery. Okay, solar charge controller, there's two functions. One is receive the solar power. Another one is charge our battery. Okay. Then another associate of our PCS is this same light transfer switch carbonate. As I mentioned before, we need to do the same light transfer between the on-grid to off-grid. Okay, that means we can have the very stable power all the time, 24 hours, 7 days. Okay, our bypass, the transfer time will be like 10 milliseconds. So even for your own factory or your office, you don't even feel any the blackout. Okay, because all the transfer will seamless. Then all the communication, all the management is will from the PCS. PCS will communicate and control the bypass to do the seamless transfer between the grid, diesel generator, even from the battery or the PV panels. Okay, after we talk about all the ATES products, let's have a look what is a fully solution for our PCS. Okay, from this diagram, we can see from in the middle is our PCS inverter. Okay, left side is our DC power side because we have the PV there. On the right side is our AC power side. We have the grid, we have the load. Okay, let's have a look from our left side first. All the PV powers will go into our solar charge controller PP250. Then after that, we can see the power will directly to charge our batteries or directly to go through our PCS to supply our load. Okay, for our AC side, we can see we have the grid. Okay, but as our topic today, the grid is very unstable, very bad grid. Okay, we can't count on the grid all the time. Doesn't matter. When the grid lose, suddenly we lose the grid. Our battery always online to supply the load. Okay, waiting for the grid back. If the battery is nearly finished, but the grid still out there, we still have our diesel generator or maybe gas generator, some kind of generator connect to our system, or the PV power connect directly to our system to continually supply our load and wait for the grid to come back. Okay, next one is our hybrid inverter. So actually it's the same as the PCS, but the difference is all-in-one design hybrid inverter. So for the HPIs, we also can do the same lines on and off the grid transfer and connect to PV power, connect to grid, and connect to load our battery. But the difference with PCS is the HPIs is all-in-one design. Because a lot of my client side, okay, Justin, the PCS, we need to use bypass, we need to use solar charge controller. It's too many products. I don't have that space for that. Don't worry about that. We have this HPS. What is all-in-one design? Okay, all-in-one design means HPS equal to the bypass plus the PCS plus the BPD, solar charge controller. We build everything just in one cabinet. That means all the solar power, battery, grid, load can directly connect to our HPS. You don't need to separate them. One HPS will figure out all your problems. Okay, as I mentioned about all of this, and okay, this is the diagram of our HPS. We can see the PV power, grid power, load, and the battery, everything directly connect to our HPS. Then HPS will converting the both AC to DC power, then to supply our load all the time, 24 hours, 7 days, as our needs. Okay. After I mentioned a lot about the solutions, the products we can use to dealing this harsh grid. So let me show you. Okay. Let me show you some of the real case reference that ATES already did. The first one is a really large beverage factory. So this factory is provide all the drinks, waters, cokes in South Africa. It's called Thirsty. Actually, it's the largest one located in South Africa. Let's have a look from the pictures. This factory looks very beautiful. Huh? very beautiful factory with plenty large of the PV panels located just in their factory. Okay, we provide them whole solutions with 1.5 megawatt inverter and 3 megawatt hours batteries. So what do we use? We use 3 PCS 500 parallel to meet the peak load on this site. And we put everything, inverters, bypass, batteries, everything located in our ATES container. So we just provide a very simple container solution for this large factory. From the picture, we can see we separate the batteries and PCS to 2 different containers. One container, we just connect all the batteries, okay? We build up all the cooling system, the fire separation, smoke detective in the container, okay? It's kind of like a plug and play, okay? You don't need to do that much the installation job on site, okay? When you receive the container, you just put on site and you connect all the cables from container to load, container to grid. Then all the system is automatic. Okay, just switch on all the system. Then if your grid is loose suddenly, doesn't matter. We have the battery on site, always online to supply you power. Okay, when you grid back, and we will transfer back to the on-grid mode to use grid power. Okay, that's the diagram. Let's have a look. Okay, in the middle is 3 PCS 500 parallel. Each PCS 500 is 500 kilowatt rated power. Okay, 3 of them, that means is 1.5 megawatt rated power. Left side, we have the plenty of the PVD 250, the solar charge controller to accept PV powers. And we have batteries, 3 megawatt hours batteries always online to supply our load. Then our right side is our AC side. We do have grid, but as we know, the grid in South Africa is really bad. They have low shading. The grid will lose suddenly, as you mentioned, suddenly. Then we do have this generator, we do have the battery, we have all the power resource to supply our load directly. Okay. Let's have a look with another real case. It's a group of village in Suriname. Okay, a large village, and they have really bad grid. Okay, maybe they only have like 2 or 3 hours per day. There's a whole village, but the people need power, so we set up a mini grid for them. Okay, one PCS 250 kilowatt rated power with 1 megawatt hours batteries to supply at nighttime, daytime, when they don't have any the grid power. Okay, so let's have a look. This case, we install all our products in their electricity room. Okay, batteries, our bypass, PV combiner, and also the PCS 250. Okay, so what we do is we supply the reliable uninterrupted power to our people, our end users. Doesn't matter, use commercial or industry or even the village, the people living. Power for the living is very important. Okay, that's our job. Okay, to supply the reliable power to the world. Okay, part 3 is let me introduce a little bit about ATES. ATES Power Technology is located in Shenzhen, China, and we are the subsidiary of the Gruat Group, and we are focused on the commercial and the industry solar energy storage. That's our milestone. We've been in this business for more than 10 years already. From 2003, we started energy storage system business. And in 2015, we start our EV charger business. And after a few years, until 2018, we already the top 3 supplier in Thailand market. Okay, and until the last year, 2022, we are also the top 3 ES supplier in South Africa. Okay, we already export our products to more than 85 countries. That means all over the world, they are our test product. We provide stable powers to all of the world who need the power. Thank you very much. Thank you for the listening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zhang, for that illuminating presentation. Moving ahead to our much anticipated panel discussion, I would just give a brief introduction. In an era marked by the increasing demand for energy, the challenges posed by harsh grid environments are more pronounced than ever. From the volatile nature of power fluctuations to reliability concerns, regions in the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and Africa face unique obstacles that necessitate specialized solutions. This webinar serves as a platform to explore and address these challenges, inviting industry leaders, researchers, and enthusiasts to engage in meaningful discussions on the critical intersections between energy storage technologies and harsh grid conditions. This virtual event promises a rich tapestry of perspectives drawing upon the experiences and expertise of speakers hailing from diverse geographical regions. So, without further ado, please allow me to introduce you to our esteemed panel of speakers for today. Mr. Justin Zhang, Senior Product Manager, ARTES, Mr. Kareem Megherbi, Director Transaction Advisory, Dye Desert Energy, Mr. Adam Terry, Technical Director from Hamatin Renewables, and Mr. Hasif Hazan, Regional SEA Manager from BSF. Mr. Kareem Megherbi from Dye Desert Energy will be the moderator for the session today. Over to you, Mr. Kareem.
Thank you very much, Ala. So thank you very much for the keen introduction, and good morning or good afternoon to everyone. So hi, Justin, Adam, and Hasif. Nice to be with you in this panel. If you don't mind, let's start by a short introduction about, well, not only yourself but also the company, your company, and especially what you are doing in which region, what are your key activities, so that we understand actually who you are and what you're doing. After that, I'll introduce myself briefly, and then we can start with a few questions about the role of batteries and how do you see actually your company and this technology inserting into the environment, the energy actually environment where you work. Okay, so I just start by in the order of what I see in my screen. So Adam, please.
Thank you very much. So I'm Adam Terry. I am the Technical Director at Hamatin Renewables. We are a South African technical advisory company, and I have been active in the renewable energy sphere since 2003. So we've been working on a variety of projects in Africa. I entered the African market in about 2009. And formerly, I've been at testing, inspection, and certification bodies, including UL and TÜV and so I have a strong background in helping clients to deliver projects in these environments. And obviously, since 2015, we've seen a lot more storage systems projects with hybrids, with mini grids, and we get involved basically at all stages, from a greenfield development to operations, working with the clients to size the system, to procure the system, to optimize the operation. And I think one of the things that has really become apparent is that the huge demand for power, for reliable power. A lot of our work is done in South Africa, and there obviously has a significant problem with load shedding. So everybody from C&I companies down to domestic users need some form of backup. And historically, the sound of South Africa has not been wildlife on the plain, it's been the sound of a diesel generator running. And this is something that people are looking to move away from. And so now what we're seeing is that diesel's not necessarily been replaced, but it has been pushed down the order of priorities. People have got their own generation systems, be this a utility scale project, be this a microgrid, be this an individual residential property. They've got their own generation systems from typically solar panels, some examples of wind. Then they've got some energy storage. Then they've got smart controllers, and they've also got diesel generators as backups. And integrating this and operating the projects in such a way has been a challenge. And I think one of the biggest problems that ESS energy storage systems have faced in the region is actually that the use case has been significantly worse than people had imagined. And that's led to a bit of concern over particularly augmentation of batteries. And that's one of the main concerns that we see from our clients is how much the system's being used, whether that's through a combination of grid support services or general backup power supply. But what we're seeing is
sorry,
that...
Adam, I didn't get your what you mentioned about the what was the elements actually that you mentioned, which are what surprised
the use case has been significantly worse.
So what do you mean by that?
So people have been finding that systems a lot more than was originally envisaged. So systems
because your sound is sometimes disappearing. That's why it's sorry. Yeah.
No, I think it's my fault. My phone is trying to be my sound for some reason. So yeah, I was just saying, people have found that they're using the batteries a lot more than they ever envisaged because the problem of load shedding has not gone away. This has also been seen in the fact that governments are now doing utility scale solar projects, storage projects. So for example, in Southern Africa, we had the risk mitigation round, which roughly a gigawatt of hybrid or nearly a gigawatt of hybrid projects were awarded, not all of which have successfully reached financial close. We've also seen now that the government is using the energy storage IPP program, which is currently requesting tenders for the second round there. And again, that is being brought in by the government as a way of grid shoring, supporting the grid. So I think the use cases are changing, but they are generally, we're seeing people are using using energy storage systems a lot more than they were ever designed for. And that's led to higher rates or faster rates of degradation in terms of lifetime. And that's been one of the big challenges for projects on an economic sense, is how you augment, how you maintain the capacity and keep the financial intact. intact. So there's a lot more focus now on warranties. There's a lot more focus now on degradation, but there's also a lot more focus on hybrid control, because until recently, very few of these projects are standalone. Everything is co-located with generation, with backup power. And that hybrid control, getting that to a bankable state has been one of the big challenges.
Okay, in a few minutes, my knowledge of battery in harsh environment was multiplied by 10. Thank you very much, Adam. Asif, so the floor is yours. Just introduce yourself. If you can introduce yourself and your company, what you're doing.
Most certainly. You certainly do look very refreshing today. Yeah? I should say I'm Hasif. Yeah, I'm based in Kuala Lumpur. I'm from BSF. As you know, BSF, we are a chemical company. We do our diligent research and development to do with chemicals, even those used in electrochemistry, I should say. Yeah? I think there's a lot of hype to do with energy storage. I can't wait to actually deliver some inputs in which I did in past conferences. But if I could be given the chance today to touch on certain parameters that actually affect the performance degradation of batteries, because when we talk about harsh environments, extreme conditions, We are talking about places near to the shoreline of the sea, for example, yeah, or perhaps you have a look at high temperatures. I've heard in Abu Dhabi it could reach up to 52 degrees C. Perhaps even so in Africa or Southeast Asia. Yeah, so more to share, I should say. But in chasing of time, I think I would have the other person to also introduce. And back to you, Karim. Yes.
Thanks. Just one question. What are the technologies on which you're working exactly? I mean, are they like all chemical batteries or specific ones you're mostly involved?
Fantastic. So as BSF, we have seven main components of our business. Yeah, we do supply pure lithium materials for the industry, for the battery energy storage industry. But from my side of the picture is that we are working on a long duration energy storage. Yeah, long duration energy storage means the sodium sulfur battery. And the sodium sulfur battery is unique in the sense that we are employing solid electrolyte as the you should say ionic conduction goes through something that's more robust. Yeah, and what you mean by robust is maybe you're looking for a battery that could operate up to 45 degrees C or 55 degrees C. Yeah, so we probably have a solution for that. Yeah. I just don't want to share too much because once I start, I don't think I could stop. So
Is it
that answers
the sodium sulfur battery? Is it NAS battery? Is it this
the
one?
aspect.
When you call it
Exactly.
NAS? Ah, yes, yes. Okay. Yeah, I do have a lot of questions then.
That's
Okay, great. Well, Justin, you're among us. I think you already introduced yourself and your company, right? So we can switch to the questions. Okay. So, well, I just introduced myself quickly. I'm Karim Megabi. I'm the founder of Horizon Invest, which is a project origination platform bringing together investors and developers, mostly in emerging markets. So in the past 3 years, focusing on solar and wind. The past 3 years, we closed 600 plus megawatts in 9 different countries, and we'll cross the gigawatt probably in the next months. I'm also part of the DII Desert Energy Team, which is a think tank, a business cycle in the MENA region, very active actually in green hydrogen, which is kind of a hot topic of in the GCC in particular, but actually broader in MENA, where Egypt, Morocco, etc. You have several projects ongoing, and we are in the middle of that. I'm very thankful to Solar Quarter for allowing me to moderate here the panel, and I'm excited to ask questions and get more knowledge about this topic, which is very technical actually, but central for the energy transition. So, well, just to brief idea of, I would say just to orientate a bit our discussion. Well, the energy transition obviously is a completely change actually in the way we are managing our energy systems, and batteries is a key element which is sometimes not well understood. Exactly what is the role of batteries? Is it for grid? Is it for people? Is it for long-term storage, short-term storage, etc. And you do have a lot of different scenarios where, depending on how, you use this technology or another one, then you have different types of, way to manage the system, and different also targets in terms of solar and wind and integration of the whole, package in the system. So, it's interesting to understand, better, especially in harsh environment which may become actually today it's mostly we think about extraordinary situations, but maybe tomorrow actually it's different. And why it's different? It's because today 2/3 of the emissions are coming from emerging markets, and there is a big boom actually in the energy demand, especially in Southeast Asia, etc. Africa is not there, but still one day it will come. So actually the environment, which was the perfect place, average temperature, etc., may become the exceptional case actually, and harsh environment would become, something which is critical, either close to the sea or close to water, scarce environment, and so on and so on. So, but let me start with Adam. Well, it's you have great experience. It's actually I've been myself working a bit in Africa for 10 years, so I kind of understand where you're coming from. But you have touched upon very different markets actually, both the individuals where people are buying their own things, and CNI, which is larger consumers. They may have backup. They may have they have a consumption profile which is quite different. So we need to understand better that. And then there are grid services, which is a completely different game. So, well, let me ask you a question. How do you? There is the technical aspect, but there is also the regulatory aspect. I'm surprised actually that there are so much projects actually with batteries and so on, because ultimately there is a cost issue here. So, and there is a regulatory framework here that should be adapted for that. Can you tell us more about kind of the economic situation, so that we just adapt ourselves up today's situation, because in the past, since things are moving very fast, costs are decreasing, so business case are completely different, right? So if you can help us to understand better the different business cases.
So I mean, in South Africa, as one of the main markets, one of the biggest problems is the impact of load shedding. Even if you're a major energy user, the best you can do is agree with the state utility, Eskom, about reduction in your demand in events of serious load shedding. So you might delay any impacts of load shedding, but what you'll find is that eventually it's going to get you, because the levels of load shedding have been a lot higher than anticipated. So there are up to 8 levels of load shedding applied, and we're regularly hitting sort of level 5 and 6. And what that's doing is that's actually making a case that there's a lot of projects that have originally come in and have been wheeling green generation in terms of meeting corporate social responsibility goals. So buying power from a green generation project that is not co-located with your demand center. And what that's done is it originally gave people a false sense of security, but actually it offers no protection against the grid outages. So now what we're seeing is more and more projects are looking for locally connected security. So that's usually in the form of energy storage. And the economics, traditionally, it's been a race to the bottom for lithium products. There's a real shame going on in the sense that there are other technologies in which South Africa has a production potential, such as vanadium flow batteries. But the economics have not been there to encourage those. At the moment, like I say, it's just a race to the cheapest price. And that means that people are putting in lithium battery installations. They're trying to tie them into the existing setups. I mean, one of our big client bases is the mining industry. And obviously the mines are generally off-grid anyway, but they've relied incredibly on diesel gensets. And now we're getting to that point where there's quite a few projects out there that have occurred because the diesel gensets are reaching end of life and they need repowering. And the funding and finances are not necessarily there to support additional fossil fuel generation. And so this is one of the big changes in the economics around the technology at the moment. Is not necessarily, it's a combination. The battery costs, particularly for lithium, have been generally on a downward trend, ignoring things like the COVID bubbles and the recovery bubbles. But actually the cost of, or the cost of difficulty with financing a carbon producing generation source have actually become unattractive. You know, the number of DFIs, the number of even commercial banking institutions that are willing to fund fossil fuel generation has decreased. So it's not necessarily just that the projects have become more commercially attractive by being cheaper. It's actually that they've become more commercially attractive because other options have become less commercially attractive. So even if the cost is remaining broadly flat, which it has done over the last sort of year or two, in comparison to alternatives, there's been a real challenge. So for example, diesel costs have been quite volatile, and that's meant that you know, it's a lot more expensive to run those diesel gensets. So, like I say, it's a reliability issue. People need this reliable power, and they're willing to pay a premium for it. We're now moving into the realms where people have, so historically, like I say, wheeling projects where you've just got off-site generation facilities supplying power via the national grid to a consumption site, they were common. But now there's a value add to say, okay, we need time of use reliability. We need out of solar hours, out of sunshine daylight hours power. We need support basically for more scenarios. And that's improving it. So although we haven't yet seen examples, we're expecting to see in the next 12 months projects where if there's wheeling with a storage element, so there's a greater degree of certainty around the power supply, that there's going to be a premium attached for that. And that's obviously helping those developers to deploy the projects. At the moment, it's been really hard for anybody to demonstrate that, because one of the big challenges that the market's faced in South Africa and a bit wider, because obviously, you know, there's a lot of multinational grids in the region, or a lot of power pools where the grids are all interconnected. But one of the problems has been the grid has acted as a giant battery. You know, time of use tariffs have meant that for grid connected projects, you can put power in at a certain point, and so long as you take it out in the same time of use period, then that's acceptable to the grid. At some point, that's not feasible for a grid, for a national utility. And so the resolution at which you're allowed to export power to the grid and then take power from the grid, that window is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And again, it's just pushing the agenda for energy storage.
Well, very, very interesting. This is music to my ears, the alternative energy, which is costing more. Just, you know, few ideas about the cost today. And I don't want to destabilize the whole argument of the, you know, having a broader perspective on the cost, but just, you know, for the understanding, you know, because, you know, ultimately we need to run some financial models and see, you know, okay, what's the cost of when I get, you know, inside the battery, then a supply. So what's the kind of cost we're talking about in electricity?
So I think the batteries are bringing in probably a 20 to 25% uplift on the cost of pure power.
Wow, that's very good, actually. That's really good.
From compared to just getting from a renewable source, because, and this is, I think that maybe we're not quite there yet, but that's definitely where we're heading towards. Because I think people are willing to pay a premium for that reliability. But there is a limit, because what you're battling against is the cost of diesel. So whenever you get these projects coming ahead, you're always playing a balancing act between how much diesel power you're going to have installed, how much backup generator, how much battery storage system you're going to have, because ultimately you need a degree of redundancy. I don't think at the moment, and until Hasif and comes up with their longer duration storage, from sodium sulfur, from redox flow batteries, I don't think people are really comfortable ever getting rid of that power supply, particularly if they're in an off-grid environment. They're always going to need some form of generator backup. But the trick is how we minimize it as much as possible.
Obviously. Okay, we'll get back to that. You know, more questions. Asif, so, well, that's the, you know, introduction was perfect, actually. Introduction was perfect because indeed, you know, you're working on long-term storage with the NAS. So long-term storage is definitely a different game, right? Because your competitors are basically, you know, if I take the grid, gas somehow, you know, you have STEP also, the pump hydro. You have hydrogen now, you know, somehow, because that's you know what is, you know, foreseen as to do the you know, seasonal variability. So, but I heard a lot about NAS. To be honest, in 2010, NAS was a big thing, actually. It started with Japanese technology, etc. So we were all talking about NAS, like, yeah, it's coming and so on. The big IPPs actually bought a lot, long term had long term contracts actually to supply NAS, etc. But we're here less, and now also it's coming back. So can you tell us more where we are actually in terms of this technology, in terms of prices, how you see actually the development of NAS? What it brings also as an advantage, compared to other, and how it can be also deployed, in terms of quantity and so on.
Very well. NAS battery, at this moment, I should say it is one of the most matured electrochemical battery systems when you speak of cells. Yeah, our first project was actually in the year 2001 in Japan, and that was for utility scale application. The battery was, for most part, exclusive to the Japanese market for a decade until, like you mentioned, 2010, where we started to deploy, launch, and commercially market, especially into the Middle Eastern regions, due to feasible characteristic of the battery being able to operate up to 55 degrees C at outdoor level. That's one of the reasons why we have a couple of projects in UAE who are running fantastical. Now, in terms of where we are at today, NAS battery has certainly developed into its third generation, under BSF and NGK's partnership. And this third generation would entail to exactly right what Adam mentioned, the race to the bottom in terms of valuing price more than quality. So that seems to be a bit of an argument, in terms of the lithium battery space. But for NAS battery, we are made of highly abundant materials. Sulfur is the fifth most abundant element, and sodium is the sixth most abundant element in this, or at least Earth, I should say. Now, in terms of the quality, it has to be translated into a form that it can last for a long time. So that's why I say when NAS battery is a long duration energy storage, it means three things. It has a long discharge duration, means time, continuous discharge hours, or partially for up to 18 hours in a day, who could actually accelerate us towards our net zero goals. The second part of it is long storage time. You mentioned self-discharge may be a bit of an issue. As simple as our phones could translate that into mine. But not having that with NAS battery certainly is very helpful. No self-discharge, and of course long lifetime. Usually projects were made to last for 20 to 25 years, at which NAS battery could then deliver the value towards that. So now, in terms of our project, if I should say, to cover a little bit on the what we've installed in the UAE, is the fact that the battery could operate up to 55 degrees C, outdoor rated. So without any impact on the lifetime. Is very important, because we have invested, and the utility companies as well. Another attribute that could be appreciated with that battery being installed is the fact that it has 100% depth of discharge. Such a level of discharge is important because we want to utilize our installed capacity into usable capacity. That is being possible with NAS battery as well. And also the inherent safety of this battery. I think I earlier mentioned on the solid electrolyte type. Solid state electrolyte enables us to not have side reactions. Side reactions are what causes degradation due to time, due to deep discharge, due to cycling. Many forms of degradation. So you'll be surprised that you were to invest into a battery, and after 5 years it's dead. We wouldn't like that to happen at all. At least with BSF, I'm trying to deliver this value and pick up the market again with NAS battery. I should say we have plans for the future to expand our production, but for the current time, we are quite selective on the types of projects. So even if our customers are interested, we will work very closely with them and identify whether that project is very suitable with NAS battery or not. And if it is, it'll be very lucrative.
Can you tell us more about the type of projects you're working on these days?
Okay.
The type of clients and the type of environments, and also how they see the use actually of this battery, and why would they actually choose actually the NAS battery?
So I'm in Southeast Asia. We do see that this battery holds a competitive advantage at locations to do with shorelines of the sea, because the NAS battery could be fitted by default with salt mist filter. Yeah, so and also it is more robust against such a harsh environment. I should say the types of projects are more so operating at more than 10 hours a day, cyclic basis for a year, to last up to 20 years. Yeah, on the initial installation. Yeah, what I mean to say is that am I asking you to replace those batteries every 3-5 years? No, we're only calculating based on energy throughput every day and how much energy that translates to slight, very minimal number of degradation to last that 20 years. Yeah, so we work very closely towards that. In terms of grid ancillary services, not particularly suitable for that. In terms of NAS battery, because usually the application requires around about 1 or 2 hours, 10 minutes every 10 times a day per se to do frequency regulation is something that we are not looking forward to, because we are more on the energy and rather capacity market of the projects rather than power.
And the type of project is mostly you're talking to IPPs who have like a wind farm and a solar farm, and they want to play with load shedding, or like supply electricity, so they would during the daytime uh, you know um, supply the battery with electricity from their farm, and then inject it in the system in the evening? Or do you bring electricity from the grid and use that? I mean, what are the type of exactly of how do they use it?
Fantastic. To use energy from the grid is very costly, because rather the same cost of energy would then be flung into the battery and then discharged again. So the cost of that energy increases. In terms of renewable energy projects to do with solar and wind, we like to do capacity firming, whereby we are providing 24/7. It's possible with NAS battery providing a firm sort of a base load power supply. Mid-merit power supply could also be, so such a thing. More so that rather than peaking power, because peaking power is something of lithium batteries specialty. Mine is more so on the reliable long-term power. So that we mentioned on renewable. In terms of the project in Abu Dhabi, for example, it is the power plant is slight under capacity due to rising demand, obviously, and the battery of NAS would to then load level that for 6 to 8 hours every day. So instead of actually upgrading the thermal power plants, we are adding a battery to stabilize such demand of power during morning peak and evening peak. So such a project could be discussed with me.
Oh, very. And are you working in India for the round the clock project?
We do have a colleague in India, but I would be taking care of the Southeast Asia market. In terms of the Middle East, I do have another colleague who is based in Qatar who will support this market. Yeah.
And regarding costs, so can you just give us an idea of how
Could be
does
very
it?
competitive. Could be very competitive in terms of if
But
we
compared to
manage.
what? Compared to, if you can give us some indication to what to replace exactly, and to understand the economic model actually.
Most certainly. Cost of renewable energy varies from country to country, but I could confidently say that with NAS battery, if we manage to size it efficiently to use the whole capacity of the day, I'm talking about 0% SOC, 100% SOC down to 0% SOC, so 100% DOD. We could speak of 50% of the energy cost is from renewables, mostly solar, I think the regions we are talking about. And the other 50% from NAS battery. So combine
very interesting. So you double the, let's say you are at 30. If I take NAS, I will be at 60.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Wow.
It could happen.
Well, that's very impressive actually. The improvement that we've made is very impressive. Okay. Justin, should I ask you some questions?
Oh yes, what do you want?
So tell us, so what are the markets actually where you are active? Tell us more about, where do you sell your technology and what is the use? I know you made the presentation, but probably with the other panelists now, you may have some ideas about what to add exactly in terms of so market, how do we use your battery? Who are your customers? And how do you see, somehow the future, of the use of batteries, when you're hearing about long term, short term, services to the grid, etc. What's your view on that?
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about the market. So, actually, for the commercial industries, a lot of the market is they need the power. It's not about the price and the benefits because the power is important for them. They don't have the power for the actually Africa, not even the South Africa, the whole Africa, some part of some area of the Southeast Asian. Yeah, I've been there. I travel a lot across the world, and I know they hunger of the power. So that's the most important is we provide the power for them, so they can do their manufacturing. They can continue their life actually. Then after that, for some another area, probably like Middle East, yeah, then they calculate which part of the power is more benefit, more cheap actually. Like Adam mentioned before, is yeah, a lot of people they use the diesel, so they have the calculation which part is they want to use less diesel, more PV. So yeah, I know the battery is still very expensive now, but for the whole market, the battery is just going down, you know, year by year. So probably later
Well,
on,
I don't feel it's that expensive actually. When Adam said, for example, okay, he said we're not yet there, but plus 25% or as if plus 50%. I don't know. I mean, if you don't subsidize diesel, etc., you probably are in the range which is acceptable, no, economically, or not yet.
not yet.
Mm. Adam, you confirm that is, I mean, to be fair, for example, if I'm residential, for example, to me it was kind of a pricey thing, right? Unless you are a mini grid, etc., where there is no other option, right? Um, so for me it was, if I live in town, I'm living in Abidjan or whatever, or in South Africa, or Johannesburg, uh, then I would, buying a system would be costly, if I with the battery. Why would
Yeah,
I do that? Because maybe, I don't like to have my fridge off for 3 days and my food is stored in a pack of ice to wait for the
yep,
grid to come back. So I would
exactly.
do that if I have the money to do that. But is it are we getting in a kind of, is it cheap or is it still expensive? And that's how you see
It's
that.
it's still on a domestic scale. It's still for the well off. It's still
Yeah.
very much a luxury. Um, I think solar power in itself has become a cheaper option, but obviously that doesn't help you if you have load shedding at the periods when there's no generation.
Mm.
It's interesting that I think that actually one of the problems that I think that the batteries are actually creating the problem. And I remember reading about this as a study previously, which I'll touch on in a second. But I think one of the problems that's coming up is the fact that the grid connected batteries is how the batteries are managed when power becomes available. And then all of a sudden you've got hundreds of thousands of battery banks drawing from the grid because those batteries have been depleted. And then all of a sudden, those batteries are actually going, okay, I've got power coming in now from my source. I'm going to suck that power in. And actually, you're getting a false peak because you've suddenly got all these batteries. And the reason why I bring this up is because it's actually, I think, quite critical for countries to think about in terms of the regulations for connecting batteries to the grid is, this is an EV related issue as well, because if we think of EVs as one of the main sources of energy storage systems, I'm a self-driving EV and I live in the UK. And last year they introduced an automatic software rollout to anybody with a home charger that puts a randomized delay on when your EV charges. And that's the default position, because what they're finding is that you're getting spikes in draw as soon as an off-peak session begins.
And so I think actually, although batteries are providing a hell of a lot of solutions to the grid, it has to be fair to say that there are occasions when batteries are causing issues with the grid. So, like I say, I remember reading a study years ago about it was a German market study saying what's the impact of EVs on the grid when you consider soccer matches. And you consider soccer matches with tens of thousands of people driving from one city to another that might be a couple of 100 kilometers away and charging up EVs. Suddenly you're placing a huge power demand and moving load centers around. And so I think it's important when we're talking about how these projects are deployed that there is upside, but there has to be control.
Yeah, it's not an
Control
unnegligible
logic.
because we do have this kind of peak already. So like for example, if you take the soccer or rugby games. So in the UK, you have your tea, during the
Exactly.
so you need to get your
For
tea. So you have
years,
a
for
big
years,
rotation.
for years in the UK, the worst time for power, the most expensive power, was the middle of the half time in the FA Cup final when
Right.
everybody went to boil their cup of tea.
Yeah, exactly. So
But
okay.
what batteries are doing now, though, is that they're bringing in a challenge that I think that off peak is getting to be less off peak, if that makes sense. Because you have all of these devices that are smart, that are looking for the cheapest utility supplied power to take that power. And so actually, as the market penetration of EVs and energy storage systems grows,
There's a change.
your
Yes.
off-peak period is changing. It's becoming more and more
Yeah.
popular.
Sure. And regarding the cost of industry also, so Justin and Adam, actually, you're really on the same page here, where you see energy supply as a key constraint rather than getting the cheapest one in many cases, because you need energy anyway. At the same time, you do have the option to get your diesel, somehow, because you need to import that, transportation, store
Mhm.
it, and so on. So it's not that easy also in terms of logistic, and you do have some issues here and there in certain environments. That being said, I thought that what this year was expensive actually, and that today there is a case which is almost all the time right, where you have PV, batteries, and this diesel generator as a backup, which is not only as a backup. And I don't know what's the percentage of use, but I thought that this package was more, in terms of economy, was more economical. Actually, was the price more competitive, than just having oil. That correct or?
Yeah, but I think that's driven by the PV pricing. The price of PV generation is so ridiculously low at the moment. The panel prices have dropped significantly since new capacities come online. So PV generation is the big winner from this. But I think the trouble is that we've taken the first step on a hybrid ladder, that we're bringing in, 2-3 technologies. But I think actually the next step is to take our hybridization further and bring in more technologies. The more diverse a grid supply is, the better, be that a microgrid or be that a larger scale utility grid. So if for example, you go back, you say, okay, right, well, we've got PV as a generation source. Actually, if you can bring in wind so that you have some out of daylight hours generation, you can have a significant impact on sizing without needing necessarily to oversize the grid, because the PV tends to be middle of the day peak, and let's say the wind is early morning and evening peak. Then there's the other side, which kind of ties in again, which is what happens if you bring in different battery technologies. So let's say you have a large long-term duration storage battery, then that reduces your diesel sizing, but you're still going to need something to keep the grid alive and active. So you reduce the size of the lithium battery. So actually, from a technology point of view, I think there's a real advantage to moving to that. But, and this is the big but, is that the more technologies you're bringing in, the more complexity you're bringing into the system. And these harsh grid environments aren't necessarily, in dense population centers or they might actually be physically harsh environments, physically remote environments. And so if you have something more complicated, that's not necessarily as advantageous as it could be. Everybody and their brother in the middle of, there's always someone in a village that knows how to fix a diesel generator. But could that same person be responsible for fixing a hybrid control system? Could they be responsible for fixing a wind turbine? It's a case of balancing knowledge and repairability with the benefits that having a more diverse supply brings.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So, Asif, coming back to your technology. So I was in China few months ago, and discussing about guarantees, warranties on the performance, and the number of cycles, etc. And we don't have yet in lithium, enough knowledge actually and feedback actually from the field to go beyond the 10 years, etc. But that doesn't mean that technically it's not possible. But in your case, NASA has been around for quite some time, and you do have some, yeah. So, what's your view on that? I mean, how can you tell us more about the progress in terms, in terms of cell and technologies, in terms of robustness, and also in terms of warranties, how confident you are, and what could
Very well, very well. Fantastic question. It's deeper than we could imagine, actually. Because of our 250 projects globally, so we have a track record that we could always refer back to, and that relates to our reliability of each and every of those 5.5 million cells that we've deployed globally, ever since 2001. And we are finding a failure rate of 0.01%. It's extremely low failure rate to do with that, and that failure rate is actually linked to the degradation of the battery. So we degrade not by temperature, not by deep discharge, not by time, but we degrade based on energy throughput. So how much energy you actually discharge from the battery every day. And even if we were to take the most number of discharge, you were to use NAS battery for up to 18 hours in a day, you would degrade with our latest generation battery less than 1% every day. What does that translate to? At the end of that 20th year of your project, you still have a end of life capacity, remaining capacity of 80%, which could continue to operate for that project. The same as what projects we have since 2001, they are still running today. So I should say, in terms of reliability, is certainly there. We are also not installing in locations of privilege. No, we are installing it at harsh environments, near to shorelines of the sea, places where temperatures could go as low as -20 degrees C, up to 52 degrees C. From the cold Canadian winters to the heat of Abu Dhabi, I should say, the types of projects that we deploy NAS battery at. In terms of guarantee, this is something that we could certainly discuss between BSF and the client. We have a long-term service agreement of up to 10 years, and then depending on the project requirement, is subject to renewal as well for you to enjoy the full 20-year confidence ownership, I should say. So such things are already in place with BSF. So I look forward to receiving your contact.
Asif, how certain are you regarding your state of health limitation? So one of the big challenges that we see on lithium projects is what is a safe minimum state of health? And you talk about your battery systems getting down to 80%, and for a lithium battery, that's still, that's halfway through its life. Realistically, on a lithium battery, you're somewhere between 65 and 70%, and that system is considered dangerous and uninsurable almost. So for you, if a battery has got 80% left after that time period, how low are you comfortable taking it? Because this is one of the big changes, is renewable developers have been pushing longer and longer projects. And lithium technology is not compatible with that without augmentation.
As part of the guarantee, we also perform annual reporting in terms of the remaining capacity of storage capacity of the battery. Yeah, so we do this for many projects, and we are finding that the battery actually performs better than the degradation that we usually discuss with the customer. Yeah? And this is to me as an a distributor of this battery, I should say, I'm very confident of these numbers. The reason as to the battery is not operating at max power. Yeah? So when you talk about short duration batteries such as lithium battery, they strive to provide 1C, 0.5C per se, up to 4 hours of max power. I don't provide max power. Rather, I would rather operate within the 6 to 8 hours to provide the entire energy capacity stored within the battery towards the load, demand, or rather the grid. When I mention like this, the battery is not operating in such stressful environmental condition, and I should also add to that the fact that we are using a solid electrolyte, which makes things of a very different, as you've mentioned, game. Like lithium battery, I don't see lithium batteries as something that I would compete with because they are certainly being deployed for short duration applications, grid ancillary, so on and so forth. I, on the other hand, is more so on the energy. And then because we are talking a lot about energy these days, net zero is actually an energy movement. Yeah, we are seeing a very big take up on us battery. As a listed company, I can't disclose too much. I would be happy to have a separate discussion.
Okay, guys. I think we will, receiving some messages from our friends from host Solar Quarters. So we have to now switch to the questions of they are. So Ala, maybe you want, to. I don't see the questions from the audience
Certainly,
actually. So
I'll just screen the questions here. A few
okay.
of them have already been answered by Mr. Justin, so I will skip ahead from those. Here
Oh, I
we go.
see. Ah, sorry, I saw that now. Okay. Cool. No,
Okay,
Adam is the guy. Adam, you take it.
I mean, so it's interesting because I've been involved in a very large scale hydrogen project until recently. And yeah, it's very interesting that you discount it. I think the challenge is that long duration, large capacity storage. There's two issues. I think redox flow batteries have got some potential. The biggest challenge though is bankability. So there's an incredible demand for this, for technologies that will meet that solution that you're talking about, that long duration, large power, large capacity. But the trouble is getting the track record through. And we're seeing this more and more, that people are now actually having to do smaller demo projects as part of a wider asset, almost like a phase one, a pilot, and tacking on a different technology to get the bankability up, to get the track record in place, to then be able to deploy them. Obviously, as somebody with a lot of presence in the South African market, it is vanadium redox flow has been one of the big areas. But yeah, I think the track record is going to be critical. That's going to take policy drivers to be able to show that these technologies are bankable. Otherwise, we're not. Otherwise, we're struggling to get there. It's too slow a process.
What I can add is just my 2 cents is that, long-term duration storage is required in very specific cases, and the need is getting bigger and bigger. However, we're still far actually in terms of the energy transition in many countries, and so the penetration rate of renewable energy is still, although it's increasing all the time, obviously, and every year, by the way, because we're putting a lot, a lot of renewable energy in our systems. But ultimately, was still, 20, 30%, 40%, etc. And so, long-term storage is definitely for the last, when you cross the 60%, 70% line. So that also may explain why, there's not, again, a boom, in terms of markets. But definitely we should look at the different um, projects which are being executed, because that's tomorrow's technology. So we need to look at them and see, get information from them, and how to optimize everything to see the behavior of that in the system. So that's my small contribution.
Wow. Okay.
Karim, okay, me. Well, but there's no hydrogen project today, so it's very easy to say. No, there are a few of them. To be fair, there are a few of them, and recently I was in Saudi, and we discussed with, one of the few who has kind of an operating actually projects, and it's very expensive today, very expensive, in the order of 200 plus USD per megawatt hour. So it's crazy expensive. So today, I mean, the goal for hydrogen is to actually grow. The market should grow, and so that electrolyzers should, prices should decrease, and try to understand, the logistic aspect of all that, etc. So you need to have simple technologies and simple projects at the beginning. And what you see in the market, and what I see in the market, are two things: ammonia, number one; number two, e-fuels, and mostly that's it today. The large bulk of the projects, that's there. And why? It's because it's produced in places where you have, high radiation, wind, access to port. You can ship that. So the large project which have been financed today, for example, it's a Neon project with Aqua Power, and it's a $1 billion project. That is the kind of project that is driving the cost and driving the markets. And what are they producing? Ammonia. They produce ammonia and they ship it, because there is a market. There is an offtake here. There is an offtake agreement for 20 years. So that's where the market is today. Now, if you go beyond that, yeah, there are some projects ongoing, but you need infrastructure, transportation, pipes or whatever. So, and if it's very local, then it's super expensive. So the market is not there, but it's driven by two things. One is investment in infrastructure. So you have that in Europe, for example, these days, building pipelines, big wind lines, etc., infrastructure. And number two, these big projects in desert areas where you have mostly ammonia and e-fuel today. Now, I know some projects in Portugal, for example, when there are ideas where you provide green hydrogen to produce steel, for example, so green steel and so on. But you see, it's you need to also to have a premium on the green steel to be able to sell it. So it's ongoing. To be fair, the market is, the structure of the market is ongoing, and that's what I can say.
I think the problem, because I've been involved in a couple of projects now that are looking at coming online towards the end of this decade. The main problem is that it's not really green hydrogen is will become, I believe, a viable option for those products. It is not going to be a viable option for an electricity store. So the conversion back from gas or ammonia to electricity absolutely destroys the economics of that as a competitor to some of these energy storage products we're talking about. You're spot on in saying that it's, hydrogen is a product, if the hydrogen can be used in replacement of natural gas in hydrogen fuel cell cars, brilliant. If you're talking ammonia, again, chemical process, off you go. But if you want to bring it back to electricity, it's just not the option. The other thing to say is that with all of these projects, in order to produce green hydrogen, a lot of the processes need 24/7 operations, which means that whether you're in a solar rich environment or whether you're in a windy environment, you still actually need backup energy storage for these projects to go ahead. So all of the green production facilities, unless you're planning on stopping electrolyzers producing hydrogen overnight or when the wind drops, have got massive energy storage requirements, because that's the only way to keep the product green. So the definition of green hydrogen is also going to be critical, because if you're providing it and you're using grid power, then the greenness of that grid power needs to be questioned, and therefore the greenness of your hydrogen will be questioned. So at the moment, I don't think they're ever going to compete.
We need ASIF to ship a lot of terawatt hour of NAS batteries to actually have this option. Just the order of the volume actually, as per net zero scenarios, when you look at grids, is mostly 5%, between 5 and 7% for seasonal storage. So if I take France, for example,
The line is breaking a little bit. I couldn't
I was
hear.
going to say the line is bad. I think just to jump in while Kareem is fixing his internet. Just answering this question that's up on the screen. There have been pilots looking at, particularly again in Europe and Germany, looking at 4 countries, particularly in Northern and Western Europe, where gas has been a major supplier for domestic. There have been pilots looking at what percentage of natural gas can be replaced with hydrogen to provide, for example, heating and cooking facilities. And I don't know what the latest versions are, but I think it was around 10 to 15% displacement of natural gas by hydrogen in the mix of gas was fine under current process. I think much more than that, and they were looking at needing additional changes to the system. So it is possible that some of our home appliances may be usable on hydrogen, but I think for it to become a significant percentage, that it's going to need to be there's going to need to be some changes to what we're doing and how that's supplied to the domestic appliances.
Yes, I think my line is better now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, so I was saying that as per net zero scenarios, when you look at the simulations and honestly, we get these results in most countries. Where I saw the reports and studies, you need a long-term storage of 5, 6, 7% actually of your energy demand by 2050 after electrification and so on. That's the range which you can see in the studies. So when you look at the gigawatts involved, and how do you support actually this 5, 6, 7%? So usually it's gas actually, and that's where you have green hydrogen, because we have gas, so green hydrogen. So if you want to replace green hydrogen, by something else, which NAS, for example, that's the you are playing in this kind of with this kind of numbers. So if I take Germany, for example, 900 terawatt by 2050, including electrification and so on. So 5% means 50 terawatt hours. So it depends on ASIF actually. Can you ASIF by 2050 provide 50 terawatt hour of long-term storage with NAS in Germany? If yes, then there is no need of green hydrogen at all.
I mean, certainly, I would agree on that point. But also, green hydrogen is filling into many forms of usage and applications. Yeah, that which not just energy, but as well transportation for long distance applications. Now, in terms of hydrogen projects, yes, we do have, especially most famously combined with the PEM electrolyzer, due to cost, yeah, because that with NAS battery becomes competitive hydrogen, yeah, green hydrogen preferably. And you could mention that we stabilize the renewable energy towards the PEM to produce a firm output energy for it to consume and perform the electrolysis. So it's possible, and we do have project references to share as well.
Okay, Asif, for you.
Mm. So certainly, if I just a bit of a diversion, if I could mention in terms of lithium battery, yes, 70% of the cost to produce lithium battery cells are the raw materials, yeah, which coincidentally is not renewable. However, the cost of an entire lithium battery BESS, only 10 to 15% of that cost is the raw material itself. Now, in terms of sodium sulfur battery or NAS battery from BASF and GK, for example, the cost is low in terms of the raw materials. I do agree on that, but it is high in terms of the quality of the equipment that we use. And of course, when I mention quality, everyone's like, what does that mean? What it means is the fact that these equipment are made to last, experienced in the market, yeah, our suppliers, things that we manufacture in-house, yeah. But of course, lots of aluminium is being used to construct the container of the battery, not just the container, but as well the module, as well the cells, yeah, so on and so forth. So that, um, you know, because we've been in this market for quite some time, yeah, in terms of the NAS battery, yeah, in terms of paying back our factory, so on and so forth, is probably out of the question. Okay. It's more so to maintain the system quality to last for that 20 years that we idolize. So, if I could mention that. Yeah.
不太好，不太礼貌。
So I saw this was asked to Hasif and I. I'll take first stab. I think supercapacitors are an exciting development, potentially or particularly in the realm of short-term grid supporting. So they may displace the very short-term lithium use cases. The problem is that from deployment on a large scale, there just isn't a track record, and the technology is not mature enough yet for any significant deployments of it to really happen. I know there are a lot of industries looking at it and thinking this is a really good idea, but it's up there with the list of things like mechanical energy storage for quick response. It's a nice development, but I just don't think yet anybody has truly got there with having a bankable, scalable system.
I believe we just have one more question here.
Sorry, and Ella, I think today's topic we should focus on the whole solutions for this harsh grid. So I know everybody is really interested about the batteries, but the battery is only one part of the whole solution. Okay, we need to talk about like the panels, PV panels, inverters, batteries, container solution, everything. Okay, the battery is only like about 30% in this whole solution, but nobody is really care about the solution. The battery and the price, I think you only have battery and the battery price, you can't do anything about that. Am I right for this? For this renewable energy, you can't do anything. If you don't have the inverters, you don't have PCS, the battery, you can't use it actually. So,
and I think
my suggestion is we focus on the whole solution. What can we provide to the whole solution for our customer? Thank you.
And I think, Justin, I think the most important bit
Point.
is the most important bit of the solution is actually the energy management system, the hybrid control.
Yes,
and
the
that
EMS.
is
Yes,
the EMS, whatever or HPC. That is critical, because without that, there is nothing. All of these technologies that we're talking about, generally, the first lithium batteries were developed in the 1970s. So we're not talking new tech with anything that we're talking here. We're changing, we're optimizing, we're developing slight different versions, but realistically, what we're doing is using it differently. And so one of the big challenges throughout this industry has been the bankability of these hybrid control systems, the energy management systems. Even a battery energy management system is a relatively well understood concept. What we're talking about is integrating different forms of technology. You've got diesel systems that have got, you need to be able to deal from black start to operation. And that's the bankability of these systems is what's really critical, because largely these are almost like a black box of the system, because they're tailored to every usage scenario. And so getting those to a level that people are comfortable to fund them, and that you're comfortable in the performance characteristics and reliability, particularly if you're in a, let's say, harsh environment, not just a harsh grid environment, but a harsh physical environment, that is critical to the success of any of these systems.
Okay, Ella, I think we're done with the questions.
Just one last question
Solution
has been posted here. It is for Mr. Justin.
Okay, how much warranty you provide? Okay, for the whole solution, because we're talking about like inverters and batteries, and also the solar charge controller, bypass cabinet, there's plenty of the different cabinets. So for the different cabinet, we have the different the warranty years. So if it's currently from 3 to 10 years, but it's all different. So please send us the email to our info@artest.com, and we will give you all the details. Thank you.
So I believe that concludes all the questions here. And I do believe some digression towards just technology had happened in between. But anyway, it was quite an insightful session, I must say. Thank you to our audience and panelists. And a very special thanks to Mr. Kareem for superbly managing the session. A big shout out to our attendees for extending a valuable time, and a special thanks to our partner, Attest, for their immense support to organize this event. We promise you to come back soon with more exciting sessions. The floor is now open for networking. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.